brother vowed to seek him out and destroy him. Sauron.
Galadriel.
Tell me everything.
It is Elrond of Lindon, accompanied by Celebrimbor, Lord of Eregion. We seek an audience with Prince Durin.
No.
You heard it up top. We are journeying once again to that fabled land of Middle-earth as we tell a tale that Tolkien maybe doesn't want told. That's right, because we're talking Amazon Prime's Lord of the Rings of Power, here on Normies Like Us, with your hosts, Colin Andor the Blacksmith. Is that what that guy's kind of name was?
Celebrimbor.
You'd be
Okay,
Celebrimbor.
Colin Brimbor.
Colin Brimbor.
Yeah, that works. I'll be,
Perfect.
I guess, Mike Gladriel.
And this is Jake Cobrandier.
Jake Cobrandier is good.
Not
Very Lord of the Rings.
Jacarand.
Jake Run. I think I
one of
like
those
Celebrimbor
knife
the best.
Colin Brimbor.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like Mike Adriel.
Mike Gadriel, yeah. So, the road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. And so what began with a series of books back in the day, we've done some Lord of the Rings
There and back
episodes. We've been there and back again, truly, right?
Yes.
We have done our long form episodes on this podcast. We're currently doing the Star Trek series, Normies. Check those out, but go back and check every Hobbit entry, every Lord of the Rings entry, covered 6 episodes, prime, bam, 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 for you to check out there of primo Tolkien content.
Yeah, Lords of November, Rings of December, or whatever we called it back then.
Mike,
That's right.
What a name.
back to back, right? We just we did a run of all 6 Hobbit and Lord of the Rings films. Had some really good discussions with some great guests. And I think, more or less, not as much as Transformers did.
No.
But we'll talk later today about whether this Amazon series is going to break us or not. But I think overall, generally, Jacob, let's start with you. Were you kind of anticipating this? I know we just talked Hot D, House of the Dragon, it's another competing fantasy series. Now we kind of have these two Raw versus SmackDown, as it were. But were you looking forward to this at all?
Yeah, I was interested in just seeing what it was about because I really didn't have I'm not huge on the Tolkien lore, so I was I don't even know what story they're going to be or anything about it. So I was just excited to tune in. And with it being in I guess competition with Hot D, it's a lot, but I don't know. They're 2 very different shows, so I think I can enjoy them both probably.
Probably. Well, we'll find out about the first 2 episodes. Colin, what was your kind of the temperature of the water for you heading into the release?
We probably got to watch it coming up, but I'll headline some stuff and say I am in primo content. We talk some Hot D. Maybe my opinion on that show has changed a little. And there's a new video game coming out. So currently I'm back playing the one before it, the 2018 God of War.
Oh, yeah.
That's whatever that one is.
The only thing that can threaten Elden Ring, according to some outlets, for Game of the Year.
Well, and Elden Ring, Mike, so I feel this fantasy primo right now, or primer, where it's okay, I am set up and ready to go. So going into this, I kind of felt ready for it. We'll talk about feelings and reactions, of course. But how about yourself, sir?
Yeah, I would say the biggest Lord of the Rings, maybe, of the group fan.
Totally.
I grew up with the extended editions, mostly the films. I read the books. I love the Hobbit books, Hobbit cartoon, even before the movies came out. I'm pretty big on it. I haven't done the extensive dive of I've done an audiobook of the Silmarillion, but while you're doing other things. So I'm not an expert, but I do know I'm aware of Morgoth, and what his deal was, which, maybe there's a lot of pronouns in this game or proper nouns, as it were, that
He stole some gems.
Who the hell are you talking about? Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, I was looking forward to it. As I was, cautiously optimistic. Because again, it's a big corporate product. We'll see what happens. Obi-Wan was another big product that's left me a little iffy on the whole endeavor. But we'll get into it. And yeah, I was excited for it though, and a lot of fantasy going on right now. So if you're a fan of fantasy, it's a good time to be in the media space, like you said. God of War, Elden Ring, and Hot D, and now Rings of Power for at least the next 6 weeks or so.
That Dungeons and Dragons movie, I keep saying.
Yeah, that too. No, that's true. We're out here for it. So yeah, shall we just begin our journey? You never know something when you step out your front door, right?
It's dangerous business. Yeah.
There we go.
That's right. We'll leave our land of glowing trees and go on an adventure.
That's right.
We're back. We are talking Rings of Power here on Normies Like Us. Some Tolkien content that comes from Tolkien material, to give a little background, but maybe not the stuff you'd think. Mike, you just mentioned the Silmarillion.
Yeah, the Silmarillion. So it's like a big compendium, kind of explaining the history of Middle Earth from the very beginning up into, about, I think the Third Age is mostly doing the First and Second Age, but a lot more shit happens in the First Age than the Second Age, really. The Third Age is where Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and, all that shit is happening in what is known as the Third Age. It's my understanding that Amazon didn't have the rights to any events that happen in the First Age, which is unfortunately the more exciting of them. Morgoth has an army of Balrogs that rebel against the gods and shit. But we can't do any of that with this show. So we kind of get the Second Age where there's not a ton of, it's not a story that's been spelled out. It's like bullet points. This happened, this happened, this happened. So Amazon's able to kind of fill in the very large blanks, let's say here, with as much liberty as they wish to, because none of it's really spelled out, So a little bit of a prequel to the movies. It feels like they're trying to be
it's between Silmarillion, the First Age, and everything Lord of the Rings in the Third Age, right? So it's like a transitional period, kind of, but not a lot was written about it. So they're kind of expanding the lore, right?
Yeah, correct. And again, because of the way the films are received, like visually, they have Howard Shore doing the theme, so they're pulling on a lot of the imagery and iconography from the Peter Jackson Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, but also lore-wise, they can dive into the text and, expand on it, like Jacob said, in kind of more ways than is what's on the page. So it's doing double duty as being a Tolkien thing and a Peter Jackson's movie prequel thing.
Well, I think visually it looks great, right?
Yeah. But Colin, what's your question?
It does, obviously, because it's Amazon pumping money, right?
Yeah.
It's super corporation. Amazon does this. And Jacob, you had mentioned last week the power of Game of Thrones, right? Or talking about Hot D, right? That people were just going, bring me a Game of Thrones. I need a Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Of course, Amazon had that Wheel of Time, but this is their true attempt at a GOT killer, right?
Yeah, I think Jeffrey Bezos literally was quoted saying,
Joffrey, right?
I want my Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
he had his little crossbow. Yeah. I want my Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Bring me little crown on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I bet.
So he shelled out a lot of money to make this Lord of the Rings show, right?
Well,
I think you can see the money in the visuals, yeah.
A lot of hullabaloo has been made about the most expensive TV show ever made, right? It's like $1 billion TV show or something like that.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I think it looks good, but I think I'm going to have a lot of hot takes on this episode. Not for the reason the internet is like, oh, it's woke, fuck you kind of assholes, right? I don't care, right? It's a fantasy world. Anybody can be cast, whatever. Quit being an asshole.
I think, we can say if we did or didn't like it, it's not because of the casting or anything like that.
No, not at all. There's, we'll get into specifics, but nothing like that is ever, on our radar, and we're frustrated by that discourse. But when I'm thinking about the Lord of the Rings films that I liked, right? What made them great to me, much like Star Wars, is there was still a handmade feel because they did these bigatures, these giant miniatures, and they would shoot them to scale. Then when we did The Hobbit, they shifted into CG. Things didn't look as good, and things are very big and grand, but they look less real than the original Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings trilogy, and that's my issue. To me, the Lord of the Rings does not mean big CG, everything's at sunset, golden sunlight. It means it was still somewhat handmade, and this doesn't have that, and it kind of loses me.
Well, it's interesting, to go off that, Peter Jackson, I think, has said, it's kind of like George Lucas. He said, if he had better technology back then, he would have used more CG, and he felt kind of limited by that. But I think sometimes filmmakers have to be limited to get their best stuff, because obviously George Lucas had the same thing with Star Wars. And I think we saw, with The Hobbit, what more CG would have been like. I think with this show, though, at least there's, obviously technology has come a long way even since The Hobbit movies were made a decade ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I think CG is still a little bit better now than it was then. So I think it's it looks better than the Hobbit movies, but maybe not like you said, not that handmade quality that the Lord of the Rings movies have.
So we're almost 20 years ago, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, Colin, where do you land on this? I mean, everyone's saying it looks great, but in my mind, I'm just like, it doesn't look as good as some styrofoam that they spray painted to look like a rock, you know?
Yeah.
I love that, Mike. There were 2 episodes released. We're going to be talking
Correct.
about the pilot in the second episode. Now, in the second episode, we meet some dwarf characters that, Mike, decidedly have more of the makeup and look of The Hobbit. So, to me, it's a kind of a blend. You know, I feel like there is some good old school visuals, effects, tricks, and then it does seem like for whatever reason they want to honor this like other crazy style that kind of nobody in the world was excited or happy about. So I don't know.
Well, I think
Yeah.
they are still using some of the like forced perspective that you know
Yes.
Peter Jackson famously used with the hobbits, the different
Scale
sizes and
levels.
stuff.
Tall character in that second episode too, interacting with some shorter little people who I would agree with Jacob. They're employing some of that Peter Jackson old school technique.
Yeah, I think they're at least trying to kind of keep the aesthetics in line with what the Peter Jackson movies were. But I totally agree with you, Mike, about like I do think practical effects just generally look better, and that's a problem I've had with like Star Trek. Like I don't care what CG you got, just put some rubber shit on someone's face and it just looks better.
Yeah.
you
Give
know?
me an ear and a nose bridge. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Any
guess-
makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess before we jump into the plot, there's going to be spoilers for the first 2 episodes, right? I guess tonally and kind of, you know, Bezos said, bring me a Game of Thrones. This is like kind of more of a high fantasy thing, though. Like it is doing that high fantasy vibe, right? So it's not hot D, right? It's not dragging you
Right.
through the mud, but it is, you know, Lord of the Rings even at times can get a little gritty, but it is high fantasy and poetic language and things like that.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
very much seem to have, to me, kind of a Dungeons and Dragons intro feel, wouldn't you say, Mike, of a session of like, to start off, here's the lore of the world. Oh, there was, what did you call him, Morgoth?
Morgoth, yeah.
Morgoth. There was, you know, first we were born, the angel babies, and then there was Morgoth. You sort of get up the set of that. Then you set up the characters a little. Then you're setting up the conflict, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, maybe we could
yeah.
talk about it, like kind of the different characters that have been featured so far in the first 2 episodes, right?
Yeah, let me bring up that so Morgoth does the thing like Colin said. The elves basically have to leave their home world. They travel to Middle-earth, right? At which point they think they're safe. They're away from this asshole, right? We're good. They kind of had a big battle where they think they've defeated, you know, Sauron once already. And then they're chilling. And so now we're kind of at this stage where Middle-earth thinks Sauron's gone, and then that's kind of the point at which we meet our different factions of elves, human and elf, Harfoots, and so we kind of have a bunch of different groups here. Jacob, who else am I missing?
Well, I was going to ask Sauron. He was like a lieutenant to Morgoth, basically. Originally, he was kind of like a necromancer or something.
He's an underling. So Morgoth is like one of the most ancient evil forces, right?
Right.
So Sauron's like an underling of that.
And then he becomes the big bad.
devil.
Right.
Yeah. So we start with Galadriel, right? Obviously played by Cate Blanchett in the Peter Jackson movies.
Yes.
Younger now, obviously, you know, the elves, they live hundreds of years or thousands of years. I'm not sure how long they live exactly, but
And this is like 2,000 years before the movies take place. Is that right?
that's a good question. I'm not exactly sure
I
the
think
timeline.
that's roughly our timeline. We'll
They
confirm
should.
that.
I
as
feel
we
like
go.
they should do a better job of explaining how, you know, the time disparity between now and the Lord of the Rings. But yeah, we have Galadriel leading this, you know, troop of elves looking for Sauron. They all say, "Come on, let's go back home. Like Sauron's definitely gone. He's not coming back." And she's like obsessed with, you know, finding him and rooting out all evil, right?
Her brother is killed. She takes on this responsibility herself. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, so we see Galadriel kind of portrayed as this like battle elf where she's just obsessed with you know,
Badass.
fighting evil, right?
Yeah. And I like Galadriel in this so far.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, I mean, you get the connection with that her brother is like, you know, because she lost someone personally, it's like this is like she cannot give it up. A lot of the other elves are saying don't, but I think she's pretty cool. Like I like, you know, that she's kind of like a badass, and like doing some elf stuff. I mean, I like this conviction she has. It's maybe because we have the foresight to know that she's right and Sauron is still out there, right? That I'm just like, stop saying you want to go home. Like, listen to the Galadriel, right? But we do see
classic,
her.
all the elves are like, just come on, everything's fine. She's like, no, I can't let it go.
Yeah.
And we have young Galadriel and we have young Elrond, right? And we see that they've been friends for a long time. So that kind of, shows their relationship, a little more background into that, right? But Elrond is more of a politician elf who's like doing his thing, and he's trying to help her, but at the same time, the king now wants her to go west with the rest of her elves. Which, here's a question I have for you, Mike, as maybe the Lord of the Rings expert here.
I have a million of these.
In the world. Yeah.
Why are the elves so obsessed with like going west back to their homelands, the undying lands of Valinor?
So it's the Grey Havens. So that's where you can basically it's just heaven. You can live forever and chill, no conflict, whatever. It's just like whenever you feel, I guess, you've served your purpose, in Middle Earth, you can.
But they've got some like pretty nice cities in Middle Earth, so why can't they just stay there?
But she, her compatriots, her hunting party, right? Because they still believe these orcs are out there. If orcs are out there, that means Sauron's still out there, even though it's been hundreds of years since we've seen any. Say to her, I miss the light of the Valinor trees or whatever they are. They seem to have this intrinsic, imagine if you were an angel, you come down to Earth. You want to go back to heaven. It's like you would never settle for Earth no matter what mansion you lived in. It's this idea of, I come from another world where this thing makes me happy.
Well, so I think where they came from to travel to Middle Earth and the Grey Havens are different. Because we
I
saw
thought they were going back to their
Morgoth burned the Erd Tree. Elden Ring fans, we see in that prequel.
Mike, this whole thing made me think Lord of the Elden Rings. There seemed to be
J.R.
so
Martin
much
definitely
crossover.
borrowed stuff when he influenced the story of Elden Ring, right? So it's all derivative. But when I did see their golden trees, which we see Elrond gave a sapling of that to his
dwarves.
I didn't understand that at all.
That's from the Elven homeland, but I don't think they can go back there. The trees are wrecked, right? So
Okay.
But it is interesting.
But can I ask something, Mike? Frodo at the end of the movies, when they get on the boat, is that where they're going? Is the Grey Havens? I thought they were going to Valinor or whatever it is.
I think it's the Grey Havens, and it's the exact same place. And I'll confirm again because I am not.
It's really rare to have
myself.
And Bilbo and Frodo are like, it's really rare to have non-elves go with them, right? But they've earned it.
They just get to go to elf heaven, Jacob. They don't. It's
elf
like you
heaven.
skip over Hobbit heaven to go to a different one. That doesn't seem positive.
You're right. It's Valinor. The Grey Havens is like where they take the boat away to go there.
Okay.
So I was wrong, and there we go.
A
lot of proper nouns in this show. Don't worry. But
yeah.
So the thing is, though, regardless, they want to send her to elf heaven, but it's like
she's like.
Yeah.
It's like
scary
when you're in the corrupt police force and you're like, hey, I think I know this thing goes all the way to the top. And like, you did such a good job on this case. We're promoting you all the way to district. So you're not going to fuck with our shit, right? They're like, we just don't want to hear from you anymore. So we're going to send you back to Valinor, basically, because she finds some evidence. That's the thing. She finds the mark of Morgoth and, she puts that to Elrond.
They kind of see her as like obsessed and like to the point of like she, she's lost her mind, basically, they think.
Yeah.
But let's touch on some of the other characters. We have young Galadriel and Elrond in the beginning. Then we have a little bit with the Harfoots, which are what I call the grubby hobbits.
Dirty boys.
They're just dirty little grubby hobbits living in the dirt and the grass. And we see them. The little kids have eaten berries. They got berry juice all over their face.
Years from
Doesn't
being
exist
established
now.
of any kind. They are just a traveling band of woodland rapscallions.
Yeah, a nomadic kind of rapscallion group. I think this was created for the show. I don't think the Harfoots are from the lore.
I think they are because
wild.
Well, I'm not sure, but I think they might have been described by
I have no
Tolkien.
supporting evidence.
And maybe they're ancestors to the hobbits in the Lord of the Rings. I'm not really sure because they've got like names like Brandy Brandy
I'm
Brook
sure
or
they
whatever.
are. The point, like
Proudfoot.
right now, they're nomadic. Eventually, down the road, this culture will settle. Some will settle in the Brandybuck area. Some will be Tooks, right? You know, and you'll start to get the Shire popping.
But they're essentially the hobbits of this show, where they're like the little people. They're like naive and innocent and kind of doing their own thing and stay away from the big people.
They don't like adventure or outsiders, right? They very much keep to themselves. They, to the hobbits. So that's kind of their deal.
A duo of teenage girls giving performances I would say wouldn't even fit in Cobra Kai. They're so saccharine and just like, soap opera-y. But this was the stuff I almost found myself unable to watch while we were enjoying this show.
I gotta say, the Harfoots are very boring to me, and anytime they cut to them, I'd be like, oh, I lose interest immediately.
Phone time, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this whole show is very boring, but I'll get into that later.
We're dancing around it.
Yeah. Well, first we'll introduce the characters, then we'll trash.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Harfoots is a
so we've
little
got the elves.
We have Nori, which is the notable Harfoot.
Thank you,
she's,
Nori.
She's a little rapscallion who likes to explore. She's
And she's feeling the call of adventure, right?
Yeah,
Hey, have you ever wanted to eat blackberries more in your life?
Yeah, they do.
Delicious.
Oh my god, give me.
Like I said, they're all grubby. They're getting juices all over their face.
Why do we have to go? Oh my god, girl, relax.
It's all good.
But eventually, a giant man falls from the sky, and they discover him, and that's the call to adventure, I guess. But we'll get to that. But before we do that, we've got the elves,
the other best grouping,
and now we've got the men, the land of men, right? And then
which is being overseen by an elf ranger guy.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
So
which is another great
the healer
fucking
woman.
subplot, bro.
Yeah. So we've got we check in with the village of men, and then we have in the second episode we have the dwarves, right? And I think so far
stop.
Yeah.
You didn't explain our ranger guy or our human lady. You just glossed over it.
Being sarcastic, Mike.
Because the reason these humans, this is backstory, because the reason these humans are being watched by elves at their version of the wall or whatever is because their ancestors sided with Morgoth. So elves have to watch them.
So we get that scene. He goes into the bar, and we immediately have like the classic village idiot, like, why don't you go somewhere else, pointy ears? And then he's like,
some elf racism, not even casual, explicit elf racism.
No. But we do learn that, these humans are the ancestors of people that sided with Morgoth hundreds of years ago. And we see signs that maybe evil is back in the world.
And then again, everyone's ignoring that.
Yeah.
Sure.
But we can call these two Romeo and Juliet, because who cares what their names are?
Boy.
So we have our main elf ranger guy who seems kind of like one of the heroes of the show. Yep. And we find that he's in a relationship with a human woman that would be frowned upon by, both societies, right?
Right.
Like elves are like, don't mix with humans. Humans are like, don't mix with elves.
They say it didn't work. People died. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure Elrond has like a half human parent.
Oh.
So
Elrond is?
Yeah. Right, he's half human, yeah.
No, one of his parents is partially human or something like that, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
He's mixed down the line. But the point is...
Elrond's like the king of Rivendell eventually, right?
I guess it doesn't make sense that they should say no humans and elves can breed, huh?
Yeah. Well, again, 3,000 years.
Who knows? Yeah. But so Romeo and Juliet, they're going to be doing things. Not to cut you off, but they're going to be a big part of the show, also boring.
Right. And so we have the human lady... she has a son or a little brother. I'm not sure.
That's her son.
Boy, so Jacob, I watched the whole thing and I was like, wow, okay, that's definitely her brother. Her last line is, come on, my son, or something like that. I was like, oh, wow, I am totally lost on this show.
And somehow he has like the hilt of a orcish sword that has the mark of Sauron on it. Bad stuff, Yeah, he finds a hilt of an orcish sword in a barn somewhere. He's messing with that. We have Galadriel found the symbol of Morgoth somewhere. That's going on. There's a guy from the sky with the Harfoots, and then we got, like you said, there's some dwarf stuff. Second episode, we get into No, I'm just excited to talk about dwarves because they have been pretty much my favorite thing so far of the show. Yeah, I like the look of them because it is kind of like that Gimli mixed with some of the Hobbit elves, but I think it fits right in. And the main elf, dwarves, the main dwarf that we see is Durin, who they talk about Durin's Day, that kind of thing. He's an ancient dwarf that obviously would go on to be the king of the dwarves and stuff in Khazad-dûm.
Mike and Jacob, that door that they go, that is the speak friend and enter door.
Not yet.
Uh,
I can tell you, Celebrimbor.
but it is that door.
Celebrimbor and Durin work together to build that door.
Okay.
And
we
there's
see the beginning stages of that.
Yeah, if you look at the
Yes.
writing, their initials are actually on the door to symbolize the
God.
friendship between elf and dwarf.
Durin and Celebrimbor.
Yep, they work
Whose
together.
name is spelled
Colin
out like
Brimbor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where
So
this
we
is going.
see, so Elrond, he's going to be working on a special project with Celebrimbor, the master elven smith who makes all the best elven weapons and such.
And they want him to. He wants a great forge, the best forge you can ever make. The elves are saying, "Well, there's no war, but we definitely don't have the manpower to help you build this."
Right. So they're like, let's make an alliance with our old friend Durin, Prince Durin. We see that his father is king right now, and him and Elrond have a bit of a history. But we find out that Elrond basically pieced out for like 20 years, and because to an elf that's like nothing, but to a dwarf he missed like most of that guy's life. And he's like, "Hey man, fuck you! Like I thought we were friends. You missed my wedding. You missed my kids being born."
Yep.
And Elrond's like,
lifetime.
"Sorry, man, I didn't realize."
I just wanted to come visit you.
Well, when the show was first announced, a friend of the show, another Adam, he hasn't been on the show officially, but he's a big Lord of the Rings fan, and he had brought up, like, if elves and humans are going to be in the show, they need to address that, like you'll have to have, like, the son of the king hanging out with the same elf, like, in season 2, because, like, the lifetime. So the fact that they address, like, this thing that, elves live longer, and it affects their personal relationships with other beings and other races, because it would. And I like that they address that. And you see Elrond kind of hits him, and he's like, first of all, congratulations. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And we see that Durin raised that sapling for 20 years. So, like, even though he was bitter, like, that friendship meant enough to him that he learned to grow an elvish tree deep underground. You know what I mean? Pretty cool stuff, I think.
When he first shows up, he's like, Elrond's like, "Oh, it's only been 20 years. Like that's nothing to me." Like he doesn't even realize what he's done, and Durin is just like has a grudge against him. He doesn't even know why at first.
And Durin's like, only 20 years, and that gives you a sense of the difference of the way we perceive time as each of these races. Colin, I mean, what do you think? I think they do have kind of more of a Hobbit look, but they're trying to kind of, I think, unify the visual themes with this show. But I think this is probably the most fun I found this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The little contest between the two of them, of course, was adorable. I didn't necessarily love Durin's wife that much and all that stuff, and I'm like, "Ooh, get me away from all this as quickly as
Well, it's
you
the
can."
classic.
But,
Don't think you're staying. You're staying for dinner. Like we've seen that dynamic tons of times in media.
Can I say? Here's the thing. Because Mike, you said earlier, this is high fantasy. It's different than Game of Thrones and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I love fantasy. We talked about it a million times before, but the difference that I find and why I think we all kind of gravitate towards grounded fantasy a lot more now, like the Hot D and stuff, is that this scene is a perfect example where it's like, you can't have sex, raunchiness, cursing or anything, but you can have like farts and burps and sort of like the lowest form of humor, and that just kind of breaks me.
Which leans into the Hobbit side of these cinematic tone that they're going for, which is a bummer because if you think of the OT, like there's genuinely scary moments and like dark and
silly,
violent.
But there are silly moments.
Yeah, here
I
and
think
there.
there's scary. I think there will be scary moments in the show too, right?
And there has been some tension, but to keep it in Dwarfville, I do want to mention it was really cool seeing Khazad-dûn like in its prime, because that's my favorite sequence in that all Lord of the Rings.
Amazing.
Drums in the Deep, that whole thing when they go to Moria, aka Khazad-dûn. It was cool to see it in its prime, and they're like refracting light from the surface where it needs to go, and like I don't know, I just found that all pretty interesting.
That dwarf engineering and architecture and stuff.
Yep.
You see, they've got a whole society down here.
Dwarves are crazy.
And one thing I really
explained to us, great holes and feasts, and then it's just empty. Now we get to see what he was explaining. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I do like with the effects is that they kind of zoom out whenever they go to a new place. They like zoom out into a map and then show you where they're going next. And there's like these sweeping visuals. I think that stuff really works well. Yeah, it kind of keeps track of like where you are in Middle Earth. So I think that's very helpful.
Yeah. The geography has always been a thing. We've had maps since The Hobbit. You know, Tolkien put a map right in the back of the book so you could keep
love
track of where
maps.
they went. Yeah, we love maps.
Game of Thrones should do that more, maybe, or at least they should have done that in the early seasons to kind of just so people can visualize where the different parts of Westeros are or whatever.
The theme song kind of functioned as a map if you were like
That's
aware
true,
of
yeah.
it. You
if
know,
you're paying attention to that,
right?
yeah.
But you really have to pay attention. But you know,
but
good use of the maps and
I wanted to mention
Tolkien style.
Yeah, Elrond. So the guy that plays Elrond, I don't know if you know this, also played young Ned Stark in Game of Thrones.
Oh,
So if anything,
Oh,
he should
it
be
is
playing
that guy.
Boromir, right? He should be playing young
Wow.
Boromir.
oh,
Now,
that's
Jacob,
funny.
I was going to
That's my
say,
joke.
season
just
5.
while we're talking about the cast, none of these people are stars. This is a lot of TV character actor,
Not
British
like a household
actors.
name level.
No,
Yeah.
no names really. It's kind of it's an
I wanna say
ensemble
zero.
piece. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
which-
maybe some of them will become bigger names through the show, like the actress playing Galadriel or something like that. But yeah, no one that you would really know of, I don't think.
Yeah. So that's kind of our characters. Is there any standouts? Again, I think, you know, the relationship between Elrond and Durin is very great.
Yeah.
But
I didn't like
yeah.
Elrond until like the dwarf stuff. Like I was like,
Is he
yes,
Elrond's kind of boring.
the poetry boy who's just like sort of like getting like upset at everything? Jacob, I'll go as far to say, you know, just our history of Dungeons and Dragons, of us playing together, my games in the past. I've never played as an elf. I really don't like elf characters in fantasy fiction because of that snobbish nature, and this doesn't do anything to fight against that stereotype.
No, in Lord of the Rings, a lot of times the elves are like very aloof, like doing their own thing in their own cities. They're like, we're kind of doing our thing. We're just going to let whatever happens happen. And that's kind of their big weakness, is that they kind of just let Sauron come back. Obviously, that's what we're seeing in the show. Galadriel's the only one who's like, he's still out there. And they're just like, no, we're minding we're being snooty tooties, you know? So, yeah, that's the thing with the elves, right?
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, Elrond is even like a narc because she's like, I saw this symbol. There's evidence that he's back, and he's like, that's crazy. Then he like tells the king,
right?
You know, and then the king's like, hey, you should go to Valinor. You should get out.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out like Elrond and Galadriel's relationship. Like they're friends, but he kind of
thinks she's obsessed
her
too. Yeah. Like,
Do they end up married to each other? Is that why they're both at Rivendell? Okay.
No, she has a husband later on in Lord of the Rings.
She's in Lothlorien. He's in Rivendell.
Oh, that's your Mike. They're not even in the same scene. You're making me realize that.
No worries.
Right.
So, but yeah.
You know what? Hold on. You know what I just remembered? Do you remember that Avengers scene, Jacob?
Yes, in the Hobbit.
Where they all come out with their stuff and they're like, "You
Milady.
didn't count on me."
Yes.
Yeah.
That scene alone is why, like, I'm fine with Battle Maiden Galadriel.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, she does it in The Hobbit. Like, fuck it.
100%.
And she's still obsessed with him even then. I'm like, yeah, that tracks,
well,
you know?
In Lord of the Rings, she's a lot older. She's kind of a one of the elder statesmen of the elves at that point, where she's like this, the queen of the elves or whatever.
She's one of like the oldest beings in Middle Earth at that point.
The maturity.
Yeah. Right, but then I think even though Elrond, they look similar in age, I think Elrond's a lot younger than Galadriel too. Is that right?
Canonically, Galadriel's one of the oldest beings in Middle Earth. She might be older
because
than
Galadriel
Gandalf, honestly.
Yeah, and we see in the first scene that she was born on their original lands of Valinor or whatever.
In the first
Her
age.
opening speech is, I remember when there was nothing, but there was always light. So she is truly one of these first creatures to come into existence.
Yeah.
Right.
And she's looking for the old guy.
Yeah, but all the scenes with Elrond and Galadriel, I wasn't feeling it that much.
I would say then, standout wise, now I know we said it's kind of our least favorite section. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the stranger, who is the being who crashes down to the earth and comes and messes with the, what do you guys keep calling them? Hopfoots?
They're Harfoots.
Grubby hobbits.
H-A-R-foots?
Yeah, Harfoot.
I don't know what that means.
Fine.
The stranger that falls from the sky, I thought maybe this would be Gandalf or something. Like maybe this is Gandalf.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's one.
But he's got like weird powers. Yeah, he speaks backwards or whatever. I don't know what's going on, man.
Does that line up lore-wise?
So,
well, remember I said, yeah, Gandalf is remember when we blew your mind before?
He's an
that
angel.
Gan-
I've
The
never
elves
seen
are
he's
not
an
angels.
Istari.
We keep using
Yes.
that, but
He-
technically
Yes,
Gandalf
but
is more of an
technically
angel.
he is.
Yeah.
I believe he's called an Istari, which is like an angel in Middle Earth, right?
Yep.
So the question is like, what is he doing during this time? Maybe that is him.
Right.
What
So
do you
so
think?
there's two questions in this show. Well, sort of one question, I guess. Who is Sauron and where is he? Right. So while that, because everyone said it's Eminem in the trailer, we don't know that for sure. So we're trying to figure out who is Sauron. So one of the theories with this, Ziggy Stardust is it's either Gandalf or it's Sauron, right?
That's interesting.
Come to Earth, right? Because he does speak to the Fireflies like Gandalf, but then they all die. So it could be
And
either
also
or,
when he
right?
lands in the fire is not hot. And they say earlier like there's torches that are not hot because they're evil or something.
So it's
So
either
maybe he is evil.
pulling
Our
the
torches
power
sense
of the
evil
flame.
here. They will not warm us.
Right.
Yeah.
Shut up.
And like Galadriel says, "Oh, how did you know there's some shit over here up in the snow area?" And she says, "Because it's colder
over here
than anywhere
Yeah.
else." So this idea of heat and warmth being absorbed by evil, who knows? So one theory,
So
I've heard
Possibly
that could
there's
be.
some signs that he could be evil, but we really don't
But
know
he has
yet.
blue eyes like Gandalf. They make a key to zoom in on that. It's so
He's
who knows?
a dirty boy.
Yeah, it could be and that's why he's friends with the hobbits later. But
Oh, that would set up the entire.
I'm not
reason
sure.
Why he likes hobbits.
Yeah, it could be him. I'm not sure how old he is. The show is thousands of years. I couldn't get an exact number, but it's like it could be him. It could not be him. I'm sure real hardcore book people are like already screaming at us at the amount of retcons that they've done to the book lore, right? But so did Peter Jackson, so there's going to be some of that. But so the mystery
I
one
guess-
is who is this guy? Yeah.
So the other wizards we know, Saruman and
Radagast.
Radagast.
And the
Radagast
Blue
the Brown.
Wizards.
Yes.
But they are also angels.
Nobody knows their
Yes.
name. They're just called the Blue Wizards, and they exist somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're mentioned in
Well, I
like
all
wonder
the
if
one line
it's
of
one of them.
dialogue. Could be a blue
All
wizard.
the wizards
be Saruman.
are angels. Yes.
But yeah, if they really wanted to take something with no backstory and give it a backstory, the Blue Wizards is a good place to start because
That's
it's
cool.
literally like,
That's
yeah,
true.
Saruman, Radagast, me, and the blue ones. Like,
Right.
I don't even know what they're called,
And like
Yeah.
Tolkien didn't even give them names. He's just like the blue wizards were over there.
Yeah, and then that's it.
Yeah.
You never hear about him again on another page of any of his
Weird.
books.
But overall, I think this show, I'm not sure where it's going. I don't know if the story and characters has really hooked me yet to the point where I'm not like with Hot D where I can't wait till Sunday to see the next Hot D episode. I'm not going to be waiting with bated breath to see the next Rings of Power episode.
No. I mean, where I'm at is this show is really boring. We've had
Oh,
2
my.
hours of it, and I still
Yeah.
the plot
was
seems
hard
like it
to
hasn't
watch.
started yet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like still introducing characters. We didn't even talk about Galadriel jumping off the boat and like the
and
whole
the boatman. Yes.
the-
of
yeah, the whole
course.
raft.
Is he
and-
Jacob, I
Sauron?
wonder if meeting a human will change her. This new experience. It just
Right.
also very seems kind of obvious. I would say a lot of the beats.
Well, here's the thing. In
Yeah.
Hot D, in one episode, they established the characters, the stakes, the conflict. In episode 2, we progressed that. In 2 episodes of Rings of Power, the plot hasn't even kicked off yet. And this feels to me
Yeah.
like it's suffering from the same thing that Obi-Wan did. And a lot of these series that are supposed to be expansive, they are
Totally.
padded for time, and it shows. Colin, what do you think?
Yeah. Yes. 100%. Yeah. That really breaks my
Well,
heart. You don't want that out of
It
Lord
feels
of the Rings.
extremely padded for time. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And to think about it this way, the Lord of the Rings movies, right? They were all like 3 hours long, but they told it like an entire story in 3 hours. We're 2
Precise.
hours into the show. This show is going to be longer than any of the movies, but I feel like they're covering less ground than the movies. So if you need a longer amount of time to tell your story than the Lord of the Rings movies, then I don't know, you're doing something wrong.
Oh man, 100%. Even if you put them like the non-extended editions, it's probably around 9 hours, let's say, for the original
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
films.
Well, how many episodes are there
8.
going to be? 8.
So we had one
Sure.
extra
So-
hour, and you could tell the entire original trilogy. Think about the first act of that, how much it establishes and gets going, right? We know
Yeah.
the
It's
It's
stakes.
gonna be endless.
This shit has just not done anything.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing this is going to tell a story as complete and epic as the Lord of the Rings trilogy in its first season, 8-hour run or whatever.
Yeah, and again, the beats that are kind of being highlighted, because I already feel myself zeroing in on storylines like the elf-human romance, where I'm like, this is a fast forwarder, and Jacob, you're saying you're not racing this thing. This might be a show where I will wait till they're all done, and then I kind of just like get through it, which is what I did with Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
But I guess the big story, because I am dumb. It's like I don't know. I didn't watch any of the big trailers before this came out.
It's hard
but I
to
go
follow.
but I go like, it's Ring of Power is what this is called.
Rings.
They want to make a forge. Obviously, the whole point of the show is it sets up them making those rings, and it's that opening scene in the original first movie where they go, there was 7 given to the
4 to the
Bimbops,
dwarf lords. Yeah, 9
exactly.
to the kings of Menu. Above all else is
all
our
that
power.
stuff.
Yeah.
That's great. That's exciting.
Yeah.
But again, the question becomes, and this is what these prequel series really have to sell you on in the first episode, but kind of also in their log line of, do I give a shit about that?
Yeah, what's the point of making this? Like, what story are you trying to tell? Like, how the rings got made? I mean, didn't Sauron make
Great,
the rings?
because we don't even explore what happens to any of them anyway.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'll tell you exactly how it happens. I've seen it in a cartoon movie rotoscoped that we watched that was very trippy, and I saw
Kate
it in that
Blanchett
opening scene.
tells us in the very
Yes,
beginning.
it's like, I've got it.
I've also seen it in Shadow of Mordor. I don't want to say there's many things that can be spoiled, and I will refrain. But if you're casual with the lore, things.
Mike, do you fight Morgoth in Shadow of Mordor?
No.
Okay.
No, he's kind of in the background at this point.
Interesting.
Sauron, I don't even think you fight Sauron, but like,
it's Splib Splab, the other one.
Yeah.
It's me, Splib Splab.
Well, Colin, in the second episode, you remember that he's talking about that hammer of whoever, and he made these gems called the Silmarils, and that's where the name the Silmarillion comes from. And Morgoth stole the gems because they were so beautiful to look at, and he just stared at them for weeks.
I'm
Right?
pretty sure that's what killed the trees.
I get
That's what burnt the Elden
Sometimes
Ring.
you just see some really nice gems.
Oh, look at these gems! He's a big crow.
He's a big crow.
Yeah.
With them.
Yep.
Of course, he's a big crow.
Sparkly little baubles.
Yeah.
I mean, from what I can tell, what's happened so far, like, what's the state of the Union at the end of the first 2 episodes? What has happened, right?
Ugh.
Starman falls from the sky, and the hobbits are kind of taking care of him, but they're doing it in secret. Is he connected to this? We don't know. Boom. 1. 2, Galadriel has found evidence. They told her to leave, and she said, nope, jumped into the water and met a human guy. And she's still trying to find Sauron, right? And then Human Ranger, Romeo and Juliet. An orc actually attacks them, which is I think a cool sequence. It makes a single orc look pretty dangerous against regular, boring, like, level 1 humans, right?
Yeah.
But so now, as soon as the elves leave, they're like, we're in peacetime, elves are leaving. Of course, an orc shows up. So now it's like, okay, an orc has attacked. We have evidence, but Galadriel's completely away from her homeland in the middle of the ocean.
Well, we see
so
what
happens now?
They're tunneling to these different towns. We see that one town over, they completely destroyed it or whatever. Yeah.
But even the neighbors, they're like, yeah, the ground was bad. There's nothing going on. Bring proof.
Please, you must understand. No.
It's all bullshit. They're seeing a trend of people ignoring clear red flags.
A cow, black goo is coming out of a cow's udders, but it's probably
the
fine.
Vavitch.
Mike, you say D&D. I said it before, right? There is that thing to a session of D&D can be whatever that session is. There's not huge stakes that change every time, or the story just gets filled in or whatever. This show is clearly taking the suggestion from that to go epic scale, take our time, build out and flesh this out. Does that work for you? Could it? I know you're saying it doesn't, but could that work for you?
I mean, what I'm really seeing is it's a lack of cohesion or a unified goal at this point. Like, with the original trilogy, we start with a POV character of like Frodo, and then we meet Strider, and then we get to Rivendell, and then we meet this larger cast that have a shared goal. Here, it's like Galadriel's doing one thing, Romeo and Juliet are doing another thing, Elrond's doing another separate thing, the Harfoots are doing a separate thing. How is it connected? We don't fucking know. It feels so disjointed. And
my big fear, though, Mike, is that the season finale of this is like, this is the Fellowship of the Ring. This whole season was
They
them all
finally meet.
coming together. Yeah, this huge
Right.
entourage. That would be devastating.
So
Jacob.
much
Well,
bloat.
Yeah, with the movies, like they were ensemble, but they always were centered on Frodo, right? Frodo was like the audience character
As
that we
the
could
book
identify
was.
with. Yeah. Who's the character that we're supposed to identify with? Galadriel, I guess, but she's like this super powerful elf who's like right and all the other elves are wrong, but we already know she's right. So there's not a lot of mystery there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of, yeah, like you said, it just feels very disjointed. I don't know where it's going yet. And maybe it'll take a couple episodes before it really really have an idea where it's going, you know?
Like if she's the main character, that's not communicated by the amount of screen time she gets versus the other boring plot lines.
On that second
Right.
episode.
Man, yeah.
No, I guess they had to show how she gets back from swimming across the whole ocean or whatever.
Which I guess fixes the Game of Thrones problem of it takes you're too quick to travel in the end of the seasons.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, it's
Ride
gonna
a
take her
dragon.
6 seasons to get back from the ocean, and then we'll get our big finale. Yeah.
Hey, was
Right.
that Smog by those mountains when she was climbing up?
No, Smaug has probably not even been born.
sleeping?
Maybe he has. He could be
Oh,
sleeping.
not even been born, little baby
How old are
Smaug.
dragons?
Little baby.
Little baby Benedict
I don't know.
Cumberbatch crawling
I know
around.
Smaug is basically like a real beta dragon in the scale of all dragons that have ever existed in the history of Middle Earth. He's kind of,
Sure.
he ain't shit, really.
Well, he's lazy. He's a lazy little boy, so that
Mhm.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
sleeping
Dragons
on
just
his
want to get
gold.
some gold and take a nap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that greedy little dragon.
Oh man, yeah, why not? Things were simpler back then. Yeah, I'm not loving it up
No.
to this point, right?
You said the fights and effects, Mike. That snow troll fight, I believe it was, right, was also very cool. But they do that kind of disservice.
I don't think I needed the
reverse-
sea monster fight. That's filler to me.
Agreed with
Yeah.
that. But they
Yeah.
do that kind of reverse misogyny thing where it's like Galadriel doesn't even fucking break a sweat when she's killing these things. She's so badass, and it's like, no, I want her to be like a real character. I would like her to like struggle
Well,
like I do.
Hmm.
I don't like how all her elves are getting wrecked by this thing until she comes in and easily defeats
And
it.
she's
It's
just
like,
a goddess. Yeah.
aren't they
she's-
all supposed to be like great warriors though?
If she's significantly older than them, that's the thing with the elves. It's hard to tell who's what age, so I can't really write
Right.
that up. But she does do like a no-look fucking slash that's like a little too cocky.
Well, I
like
do
an
like
anime.
when
I'm
she
fine with it, but yeah.
she runs up the sword and does the big jump. I like
That's like a
that.
Legolas thing, that's fine, but it's the
Yeah.
no-look kind of,
It's so
I'm
anime.
so cocky. It's very anime.
It's going off the Peter Jackson, like Legolas started off doing some cool things, then every movie he's doing more and more cool things,
Cooler
and
and
that just
cooler.
became part of his personality. Even in the Hobbits, he's doing them. You know, they shoehorn him into the movie just to do more cool things. So
You know what, Jacob? You know what I just realized, because you came up with that term when we were talking about that, or you pointed out that observation, but we didn't have a name for it. It's the Evan Peters Quicksilver effect, where it's like this character ruled. You loved seeing them do this one
Yeah.
thing. What's their character trait? I don't know, but we can make them do a cool thing again. And you're
right,
like, oh,
let's just have him
well.
do another slow-mo scene.
Which,
Yeah.
ironically, we're calling it the Evan Peters effect, which would be retroactively applied to the movies that came out before that, which is the Legolas effect.
Right.
it's
That's
really
true.
the Legolas effect.
Yeah, Peter Jackson called them leggy moments. He wanted to give him a
Leggy
leggy
moments.
moment, but they would always
Yeah.
Leggy moments.
escalate.
I'm gonna remember that.
Yeah.
Well, you get the skateboarding on the shield in
That's
Two
the second
Towers.
movie.
Greatest.
What's he do in the
And then
first
in the
one?
third
like some cool
movie-
arrow shit, right? That's pretty
The
much
Yeah, he
it.
doesn't do anything that cool, but the
In the
elephant's in
first
the
movie.
third
Yes,
movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But by
Then
the
he
third movie, he's
skateboards.
bringing down a whole elephant by himself.
And
and
skateboards
then the
again.
barrel in the
Yeah.
Hobbits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the rocks, it gets bigger and bigger. Zero gravity at Legolas.
I think
but,
in the first one we see him
Yes.
walking on snow, and he's not, he's
Yes.
walking above the snow basically, which is like a cool little detail. But-
yeah. All right, so I think we agree pacing. To me? Let's talk about stuff that we like. I guess because I like Galadriel. I like the actress. I think regardless of that one no look slash, like I like that she has this conviction and like she's willing to give up maybe the only chance of going to Valinor.
Yeah.
To like, I know
Right.
evil's out there. Her brother, she's like, which light, if you want to follow the light, sometimes it reflects off the top of the river. So how do you know which way is the right way to go, right? There's that whole metaphor. And it's like, that's when you don't know until you
Sometimes
choose
you
one.
don't know.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know. So I liked it. It's like, is the light of the Valar her true path, or is she supposed to, is that the reflection she needs to ignore and really track down Sauron? So I liked that, and I think the actress has grown on me. throughout the first 2 episodes because I'm like, it's not Kate Blanchett, but I'm giving her full marks, I think, for trying. I don't like what they're having her do, but I appreciate the actress and her portrayal of the character, I guess.
Yeah, I think she's good.
Yeah. Colin, how do you feel about Elrond and Durin? I do think they steal the show, though.
Yeah, and I keep forgetting Chris Dunbar. What is it?
Celebrimbor.
Celebrimbor.
It's all right.
Celebrimbor. I just have a feeling that that's just what I'm going to be into again the most. But positives.
It's hard, huh?
The unfortunate thing is that in the era of peak TV, where I have so many choices, I really can't just choose something because it looks incredible. You know?
A lot of things look good. Yeah.
I'd be very curious if this is stagecraft or whatever it is, Mike, or the
Volume.
screen, the volume. Yes.
Somewhat, yeah. There are some practical sets, but
I think it looks better than.
Colin's having a hard time finding one. Yeah,
I'm kind of struggling here.
It looks better than like what they've been doing with Obi-Wan and Boba Fett and those shows. Like
that's true.
So I can say that.
It's not paced any better than those shows, however.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, to compare it to something
paid the
like
VFX artists.
I need to stay on positive. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
We're trying.
It'll be
positives.
Short.
I think Galadriel is good, and I like the angle. Like, she kind of reminds me of Joan of Arc, right?
Yeah.
She's like this charismatic leader that people will follow into battle, but now she's kind of becoming obsessed, and like maybe she's kind of losing her mind. They don't really know the other elves. Yeah. But then obviously we know she's right already, so there's no sense of mystery of like, is she right or not? Like, is Sauron still out there?
There are moments of character development with her too, where the guy on the boat's like, the orcs killed my family. How could you know shit about loss? And she's like,
brother.
I've lived so many lifetimes. Not only my brother, the number of people like that I've lost, it would take more time to list their names than you have on this earth. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's like I've lost so many people because of this evil. Like,
but it's also like
even, right?
It's funny that she's just like talking down to these people who are like stranded on a raft in the middle of the ocean. Like, my life's been a lot harder than yours. Like, I know you guys are in a bad situation right now.
That's the elf pompousness, I guess. But she's not wrong.
Let me tell you how you got it. Like, man, we just saved you. Shut up.
Yeah.
What did you lose? One family, big deal. I've lost 78. Like, okay, it's not a contest.
Right. Yeah. From their perspective,
remember.
This random elf lady was just floating in the water. They pick her up and then all of a sudden get attacked by a sea monster right after they help her.
Right.
Like, I was so lost
handsome
at
man.
the scene on the boat. I'm going to be honest with you guys. When the other guy is screaming at her, take my hand, and the light is, and I'm like, is it Logan's Run? Like, truly, are you just like obliterated? Like, I just could not understand.
Yeah, I don't know.
Going on.
You're passing into the elf heaven, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, so I guess that brings
can't come back, Mike?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe it's a lot of paperwork and just nobody does it.
If they don't have passports.
But like, she's like, yeah, what am I going to do? I'm just going to go there and think about how right I was till the end of time and just sit like with a daiquiri. No thanks. But here's the big question for the series based on who we've seen so far and kind of what I talked about with Tall Man. Who is Sauron? I have my number one candidate. I'll wait until you go. Colin, who do you think are some of or the most likely candidate to be Sauron? Also known as, I think, the god of gifts. Like he's originally presented as not. He's a deceitful guy. He's not going to present as evil. Right.
He's hiding as like a human or something.
Yeah. I liked what you said about the stranger because I did not.
Has he been introduced yet? I would think they probably did. Right.
Well, I thought it was going to be that Eminem looking dude or whatever.
But we haven't met them yet.
Yeah, which is also weird. I don't know. I don't even have a guess, Mike. I think maybe the healer woman is kind of an interesting, just because she seems, because the kid, how does he have that blade? I don't know.
Well, he found that. He's a scallywag, and he went into some farmer's basement who had it from the ancient
I feel
lore.
like that kid is going to be like corrupted by, the Dark Mark and help Sauron at some point, basically, and not even knowing what he's doing.
Yeah, and then the mom healer and the elf ranger guy are going to try to
It's like when,
keep him alive.
Yeah, like when Pippin or Merry, whichever, I forget, looks at the, the eye of whatever.
Don't look at it, Merry!
Or it'll be something where it's like when Frodo gets stabbed by the Morgoth blade, which that is, Morgul blade, sorry, and it, it's made of dust, So it's a similar kind of weapon that Frodo gets stabbed with way later. My candidates then, if we're struggling here, it's either, in my mind, tall Gandalf guy, could be, right? Could be handsome man, handsome boatman, mysterious handsome boatman.
Oh, sure.
It could be. Because he's shown to sacrifice the other survivors to save himself, right? He doesn't, maybe he's a bad guy.
Right, but then he saved Galadriel.
Right.
He wants to be with her to corrupt her. That would be sort of his end goal.
Right now, my front runner, however, is that elf lieutenant who's like, take my hand, come on, let's get into Valinor. Like, let's get you off the playing field.
That guy did suck, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe his whole thing was, we need to get you to Valinor because you're the one who's really pursuing me, and then I can sneak my way back into Middle Earth.
He jumped into the water, too.
Fuck shit up, maybe. Maybe he did.
Interesting.
Or maybe he can get out of Valinor. That'll answer your question. But
Who knows?
he was the most, like, stop pursuing this person.
Every scene with him was bummer.
And I'm like, maybe it's him. Maybe it's him.
I feel like that's just like the mayor from Jaws. Like, there's no sharks in the water. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be a trope too. But that's my thought. Is have we met him yet? Who knows? But right now, that would be my front runner. But not very exciting or compelling.
No,
really. Like it's not something you're gonna get your buddies around on Friday night to watch. You know?
And no, I agree with that. And here's what I'll say because I think we're heading towards our wrap.
We're getting
here.
close.
Yeah.
The second one ends, and I am like truly like a zombie. Like I am slack jawed. My eyes are static. Like I am just like looking for it. I'm like, oh, it's over, great. And it goes to that, on the upcoming season, which is something these shows love to do now, where they drop their first episode and then they go, please, please, please come back. Right? Here's the tease.
Right.
All of it just didn't look great. It just kind of looked like these big sort of set pieces and swinging swords, and, kind of the stuff that they're reaching for. But boy, nothing to make me go like, what?
Colin, can I tell you my red flag from looking at that? So I'm watching it, and I'm thinking the whole time, just show me one frame where there are characters from different storylines in the same shot. And I couldn't find one. I didn't rewind it, but I was like, show me the Harfoot girl standing next to Galadriel. Show me Romeo and Juliet with Galadriel or Elrond. Like, nope.
Yeah. Well, their stories don't really have anything to do with you, so maybe they don't meet up.
So why do we have all the filler? Just focus on Galadriel and Elrond doing the Celebrimbor thing. Like, you don't need...
Well, I guess maybe they're trying to make this like epic thing, like Game of Thrones, where you had Daenerys' storyline over in Essos. You had the far north with Jon Snow.
I'm sure that's the mandate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so it's like, let's show you all these different stories that are never going to connect.
And the promise of that, of course, Jacob, was from book readers like yourself to watchers like us who would just go like, "Whoa, what does this have to do?" And you'd go like, "Just trust me. It's all, it's all leading towards this glorious thing that this guy hasn't written yet." And we're like, okay, there was that amount of trust there. This, I know we said the Silmarillion. I also read something somewhere. I think what they truly own is the appendix in the back of the book, The Return of the King.
Yes.
So
that's where the second age was described, basically, in the liner notes.
When you would see like an asterisk and it says, look at this name at the bottom, and it goes back and it's like, Steve was also the king of that house. And you're like, okay, that is not a lot of like room to pick out a ripe story necessarily.
No. So they're given kind of a blank page to do a Game of Thrones analog, and by splitting all these storylines, like Jacob said, they have a wall, where the elf had to be. He's our Jon Snow, right?
Right.
But
I don't want it. The ring, I don't want it.
But in the end, it just feels like they're taking at most 4 hours worth of story and stretching into 8 hours, with all this extra bullshit.
100%.
Well, and the fact that they bet on this so much so that they've said like, oh, if this isn't a huge hit, like Amazon is just going to suffer because they put all their eggs in this basket, and if it doesn't pay off, like it's going to hurt their bottom line.
And we should say about the review bombing thing, right? So this is another one of these things that have been targeted because there's diverse characters across the board.
They have the audacity to put a diverse group of humans on screen.
Reflect the real world.
How dare you?
And appeal to a broad national audience.
So we've seen this before. Yep.
In multiple mediums, and it is something where Amazon in the past has been like, hey, come on, fuck you. But they sort of do let you leave those reviews anyways, right? This is not the case here, where they have put a 15-day embargo after every episode for reviews, which Jacob, I think, lends to what you were just saying of like, how dare you even complain or imagine that this thing isn't going to work? We will kill you if it doesn't.
Well,
it's like, well,
there's two problems with this
Yes.
of like every new thing has to be like there's that one contingent that'll say, oh, there's minorities in this, therefore
Yes.
it's bad. And that's happening
She-Hulk
every time
exists.
now.
I must kill her.
House of the Dragon. How dare you have one family out of all the
Yes.
families in Westeros that are black?
Yes, God damn you.
I think we call
so
those
you
people
have this-
racists, just for the
Yeah.
record, you know.
But I'm
Racist,
not, and
yes.
you see this, and I'm not. But
It's just
historically
woke, right?
and accurately, and I just it just takes me out because if you think about the genetics and you're just like, boy,
What's
what is-
historical about a
They're made
fantasy
up
series?
characters, dog.
What is
Yeah.
there is a dragon in this? There was something called a snow troll earlier. Just
Yeah.
everybody.
We have
But-
another dragon called Sea Smoke.
But the
It's
problem, I
ceased.
think, is double-sided. So you have this contingent of racists
Yes.
that are saying, "Oh, this is bad because of this reason,"
Yes.
and now you have this thing where any bad review,
Yes.
another group of people will say any bad review is because you're racist. So you
Yes.
can't criticize anything about the show, or you're feeding
You
into
risk
the
getting lumped
Yeah.
into the bad
Yeah.
toxic
But- and
group
the-
too.
The disadvantage, Jacob, being that not being able to leave these reviews now, there is no accurate portrayal of this when in fact it seems like the global reception is not sparkling or positive.
It
Right.
is tricky because you can't get an objective score on things like this because they're so divisive. You almost have to check it out for yourself or talk to people you actually trust. You know, if you
Yeah.
look-
We're listening
and
to
it's
normies
almost
us.
like these it's almost like these companies like Amazon and Disney are hyping up this whole discourse about wokeness just to make it so that all negative criticism
yes.
is lumped in with that.
I would
don't
agree
know,
with that. I also
exaggerating
think they
certain
just
things.
don't know what to do. I think each
Mm.
time really is an experiment for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, the
yeah.
main criticism for me is it's just fucking boring.
It just sucks.
It's
I
slow.
don't want to say it sucks, but it kind of sucks.
It's
It
badly
sucks.
paced. The first time I tried to watch the first episode, I
Trying
was
to be
a little
positive.
sleepy, but I fell asleep by the end of it. The point where I was like half watching it, and I thought the first time I watched it, I thought Galadriel like flew off the boat, and then and the guy falling from the sky was her falling back to Middle
Oh,
Earth.
that would
I
have
was
been
like,
awesome.
yeah.
I'm so confused what's happening. So I had to
She just
rewatch
launches.
that. But
I
yeah.
watched a 6-minute commercial on my phone because I wanted to hear like the jingle that was in it, from some post on Reddit. Once that ended, I was like, wow, I just watched a 6-minute video. I turned back to my TV to see Rings of Power was still on. I was like, what the fuck am I watching? And I couldn't tell for a minute.
Oh man,
Sure.
yeah. There's a lot of characters, a lot of proper nouns, like a lot of new names, like
Yes.
Bronwyn or
Yeah.
something is the name of the woman, the human woman,
Right.
Juliet. I
But
don't
then
know.
just the so transparent take of, the name Durin, we're going to catch you with some of these where it's like, yeah,
Right.
you motherfucker, I know who Elrond is. I don't
Elrond?
like this.
yeah.
Yeah, it's boring. It's wild to think that with two episodes of 1 hour long television, they haven't really done anything to engage you with a plot or a threat. Like,
No.
you,
Well, think about
the ball
and
is
not to compare it
not
again to
rolling.
Hot D, but it's inevitable that people will compare these shows, even though they're very different
well,
in
the
terms
balls
of
to
subject
go
matter.
head to head when this is what you're putting
Yes.
out.
Which
Yeah.
is rough.
The hubris.
Well, just think about think about your opinion of Hot D after 2 episodes, not even this latest episode, but just after the first 2. So much more happened, and you're so much more interested in like what's going on than this show, right?
I was higher on it after the second episode than I was going into the first and Hot D,
Yeah.
and I am less in on it after the second episode of this, although I will continue. Colin, what do you think?
You guys said the best you both literally said the best criticism up top of that first Hot D episode. Spends a lot of time setting everything up, but the success of it is it stops after that one. This one,
The second
episode
one
2, they're like,
expands
here's
on it.
the
and
rest
it's like,
of the stuff we forgot to tell you. And
Yeah.
if there's a third episode where they go, and also here's some more stuff. Okay, now the story starts. I will be very disappointed.
well,
Yeah.
I feel like they're still going to be introducing characters because there's too many. I think they're doing too many storylines to introduce in even 2 episodes. Like we didn't get the dwarves until the second episode. We haven't even seen Sauron yet. I think we're going
Right.
to get more introductions to characters as we go on. So who knows?
You can't spend a first season of your flagship show setting up the stakes, and I'm scared that that's what
We
they're
did
doing.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the preface. Your first season can't be the preface because you've already greenlit. I don't know if they have, but if you've already greenlit 5 seasons of this because you got bottomless pockets, to quote my favorite Star Trek Picard, the sheer fucking hubris, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
to just spend a season doing nothing but set up.
Yeah, and Bezos is just like, if I throw enough money at this, of course it'll be good, and of course millions of people will watch.
That's how billionaires solve problems. Just keep throwing money at it.
Does PP, our beloved useless Paramount Plus, and actually real quick, I will make fun of Amazon. I can't fast forward. I cannot figure out how to fast forward on the Amazon app. It is also a piece of shit, guys.
Oh, man, I got a Fire Stick and I can do it, but
amazing.
Yeah.
Does PP have a Game of Thrones? They have a fantasy show?
Oh yeah.
I don't think so. They just have Star Trek.
They own Harry Potter though. No, that's HBO.
Yeah.
That's HBO.
Yeah.
So no.
Or Warner Brothers is Harry Potter, but Warner Brothers is HBO.
That's it's on HBO Max. Yeah.
Sorry, you are right. Yeah. I would just be very curious to see how some of these other ones shape up, or how these other streaming services deal or look at this. Because if I was them, I would take the loss leader to be like, you know what? There isn't going to be another Game of Thrones. They're going to keep making those.
Yeah, it's Hot D. Hot D's the new Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
Wheel of Time. No, nobody watched that. The Witcher tried, but mixed reception.
BBC had what is that Terry Pratchett really famous series Discworld? I think they 2 years ago had a Discworld series that people kind of liked that looked so cheap and terrible, Jacob, that I can't even imagine.
Well, we're in the state of streaming now is that you get something like The Sandman on Netflix, and you have Neil Gaiman begging people, hey, if you're not going to watch it all right away, could you at least put it on playing in the background so that we don't get canceled because Netflix bases everything on who watches it within a certain time period. And
it's not looking good, dude. But meanwhile, you have Hot D firing their showrunners, but still very boldly going, there will be a season 2. We're greenlighting it.
Yeah, Miguel Sapochnik left because he felt burnt out. So he wasn't fired, but he stepped down.
He wasn't Dracarys.
But you just wonder, with the reception that Amazon is having, if they would have the balls to be like, you know what? I mean, Lloyd, to fumble Lord of the Rings. To
cancel it.
Which is supposed to be the bastion and gold standard of all this fantasy.
It invented
stuff, right?
fantasy as we know it, basically.
Yeah.
The books,
And to talk about who's behind this, this is the most fascinating thing to me because the writers of this show, they have almost no background. They have no credits. If you look on their IMDb, it is insane. I don't know how they got this job. It's a writing duo, and then you have director J.A. Bayona, right?
Who's only doing the first and second, and we should know. We pointed out did the second Jurassic World, did a Monster
Jurassic
Calls.
World movie, yep.
Right,
Mike. I wanted that raptor to talk so bad.
I know.
But and then for the rest of the series, it goes to Jacob. I clicked on the person where it was they've done some Doctor Who episodes, and I'm like, this is the caliber of talent you're bringing into this. Wow.
So you have J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, and these guys, they're so much. Well, they're so unknown that they don't even have a Wikipedia. Their names on Wikipedia are not a link. So I have, if you look at their IMDb, they have one or two credits on something that's they have no pedigree. So it's how did they get this job? Why did they decide these are the right people to tell this?
It's really a lot is aligned for this not to work out when you take into fact if we remember the development cycle, delayed, short video kind of as a tone poem. The end of it gives you a date where it goes coming soon, and you're like, what does that mean? It's been 2 years. They were like, well, we're trying.
And maybe right after this we'll go to final thoughts too. But it's even the first trailers, going into the show, I was I still have no idea what the plot of this is. And 2 episodes in, I really don't know what the plot is. So I think that's kind of where we're at.
Definitely.
Unfortunately. So let's go ahead and get into final thoughts on Rings of Power.
I'm going to put this ring on and disappear.
I wish I could too, man.
We're back with the Normie Fellowship here on Normies Like Us, where we are talking the Amazon Prime series, Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Something that a lot of sad fanboys keep saying J.R.R. Tolkien would be spinning in his grave about. I know that we just kind of trashed this thing, but we would not go that far, right, boys, to say that I don't think he would give a shit if he saw
either he would hate already the Peter Jackson movies and therefore hate this and
We would
all
know
of
his
his
stance,
media
yeah.
adapted, or he just wouldn't care, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like he'd be a guy who's like, it was meant to be a play, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or it
Yeah.
can only be told in a
Like,
song.
I also feel like he may just be like Alan Moore and just hate every
Yes.
adaptation of
Yes.
his work.
Yes,
Yeah.
I could see that. Certainly his kids do.
He'd
based
be
on
like,
their
Yeah.
reactions.
You're not pronouncing Elvish right. I hate it.
Yeah.
He'd be
And
really
then he
mad
would-
about that shit.
He'd speak in the entire. He would only do interviews in the Elvish language.
Right, because he was mostly
Like,
writing
well,
the
this is
books just so he could have a place to put his fake
Yeah.
languages.
And I
he's a
think he would hate
linguist.
Yeah.
he would hate all the leggy moments, like you said, like all the Legolas moments.
Yeah.
You know, he was
He
a
would-
scholar league kind of guy.
Here's what he would do. If he was still alive, he would be friends with that Game of Thrones guy who makes those crypto languages, Jacob, that you're always pointing out.
Oh,
That
sure,
guy that
yeah.
like does all the Hollywood movies. And he would be like a JD Salinger type who wouldn't let any of his stuff get adapted, but he would write that guy letters to be like, oh, Lathalori Godalo to you.
He would have
Yeah.
had
Like, oh, shit.
been working on Star Trek, fleshing out
Yeah.
Klingon and shit.
Yes,
Like that would have
yes.
been him. Yeah. But
Totally.
they say they're turning their grave. I guess to get to my final thoughts, I've come to a point where I've just resigned myself to properties that I love are gonna get cash cowed and turned to shit. You know, it happened with Star Wars. Now we have mediocre Boba
Yes.
Fett, mediocre Obi-Wan. You know, like
I
Yeah.
call us the Phantom Menace generation. We cannot be bothered when something is bad.
no. Well,
Right.
now I first would be bummed out, but at this point, it's like it's just gonna happen. It's just gonna be bad at some point. So keep what's good.
Yeah.
And it's very alarming that the first 2 episodes of this feel so boring. Like if you have to cancel your Lord of the Rings, man, that says a lot about how incompetent you are.
Yeah.
And to you just said, would you call those movies boring ever?
No. I mean,
No.
the Hobbit ones I don't love, but they're way better than this. The first 2 hours of the original Hobbit movie are better than the first 2 hours of this show, easy.
And if you go back to our Hobbit episodes, I think we make it pretty clear. I could not take our eyes off the screen.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot going on in those movies that I don't like, but I'm certainly aghast the
I'm
entire
glued.
time, not bored or
Trying
sighing.
to stay awake. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've cured insomnia, though. That's good.
Yeah, I
As
think
a society. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank
you,
Lord of
me-
the Rings of Power.
I have no kind of investment in the lore of the world of Lord of the Rings, so I cannot tell you, how accurate it is or anything like that. If they're ruining all the lore, but I just don't care. It's like I still can go back and watch the Peter Jackson movies and enjoy them and not even think about this. So it's like,
Mhm.
go ahead, make your show. Maybe it'll be bad. Maybe it'll be okay. Who knows? But for me, Hot D is very different because I'm a lot more invested in that world, I guess, just from being a fan of the books and everything. But again, even if they mangled the lore in that, I wouldn't hate it. I'd still enjoy it for what it was. So I can kind of take things as they come and just be like, it doesn't lessen my enjoyment of the Peter Jackson movies at all. And if it's bad, then it's bad, and I'm not going to really think about it too much.
But what do you say with the first 2 episodes then? Have they done a good job of getting you invested as a casual fan into where this is going?
No.
That's a good
I mean,
to
I'll
know.
keep watching it probably week to week just because
We have
it's
to.
there. But yeah. And I want to see if it does get any better or not, or if it gets worse.
I'm certainly not looking forward to it on Fridays the way I would with The Boys, right?
No.
Which is the Amazon's best show right now.
Right.
Yeah. That's the
Colin?
real Game of Thrones.
Hey.
Yeah. Similar thoughts. I don't know. Like I said, it
Neither
really
do
breaks
they.
my heart. Yes, but it makes me realize, because we are being cynical about this stuff, and I just said, that we're this Phantom Menace generation of, haha, they are going to ruin everything. But it really makes me realize when they do go back to a property that was used and they go, okay, let's take another look at it, that Prey is one of a kind, where they just go like, no filler, all killer, awesome story, awesome material, honor it, going above beyond, add to it, just all this stuff. And it's just, I just wish that literally everybody could come at it from that route. If you own Amazon and you're like, we have this streaming service, we have one shot at Lord of the Rings, fuck doing it like everybody else. The algorithm says, 8 hours of content keeps people coming back. This is Lord of the Rings. I want to let's drop 2 episodes of a 1 hour each that are just like an epic fantasy tale. A month later, let's drop like one more that's like another crazy story, set at this, like you really have the opportunity to like do kind of like these one of a kind things that, boy, I don't know.
You know what
I don't know.
That inspires me, Colin. That, as you know, me and friend of the show, Adam, we're working on still intermittently that Obi-Wan edit of taking the Obi-Wan show and turning it into an hour-and-a-half thing. I'm wondering
Mike,
if
we talking Rings of Power cut?
Could be. Is there a way in which, when all is said and done, it's this first season, like, is there a compelling Galadriel solo episode, or like 2 hours of compelling Galadriel, 2 hours of compelling Elrond, 2 hours of compelling Harfoot, instead of splicing?
You just figured out how to do it. They should have done one-shot stories.
Here's how the
with
threat
these
is looming for each race in a 2 hour.
Yeah, it could have been more like an anthology with each episode being
and then you get crossover
That would have
season
been awesome, Jacob.
Yeah.
That's free. So maybe there's a version
there you
of
go, Bezos.
Yeah.
We know you're listening.
We know he comes here for most of his ideas.
You have 6 episodes to re-edit. I know money's not an object. I'm available.
But are you going to be doing the week-to-week, Mike? I know you said you're not looking forward to Fridays like the boys, but you will be checking it. And, I should say this.
Yeah.
If this thing has a killer finale, because we're doing this
reverse
episode now.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, really.
We're
doing this episode now where we might not cover Power Ranger rings again until a Whatcha or something. But if this has like the greatest finale of all time, we should get Chris back and do a fucking awesome Lord of the Rings episode where we eat crow. I hope that happens.
Absolutely.
It's not going to.
Yes, no, it's not. I'm not optimistic about it, but yeah, there's nothing else on Friday.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Why not?
Sure.
I'll throw it on while I'm eating dinner and then hop on Discord and complain about it, with my video game friends. It'll be fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, and not be allowed to post about it because of racism.
I hope it improves. I do hope it improves.
Yeah.
Because I do like the Lord of the Rings universe, and I think Galadriel's doing a good job. I like Elrond and Durin. There's nuggets. They're but even the smallest light, we need to have hope in the darkness, right? That's the Lord of the Rings kind of thing. But I don't know. It's not looking good so far. You should have shot at New Zealand, right? Build all these sets. Spend your $1 billion.
Yeah.
Going out there and doing it that way. But
we know what it looks like. It works.
Yeah, it's easier to do it on a green screen. Anyway.
Yeah.
I guess that's my final thoughts. Destroy it. Throw it into the fire.
No.
It corrupts your soul. Be gone with it, Bezos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a fair thought to end it on here. Normies, if you felt any different, of course, you can always hit us up at Normies_like_us on social media. Rate, review, subscribe. That helps out the podcast a lot. But really, if you do have this opinion where you go like, I got to say, as a fan, I was listening to you guys. I've got like 7 corrections for you. I think this, I think that. Write in, because or call, leave a message, whatever, comment. I would love to know that, because I'll eat crow on this shit. Like we said, I don't care. That would be great to be corrected.
Yeah, much
and
unlike,
check us out on YouTube.
Yep, unlike the High Elf King, like I'm willing to admit when I have been wrong. So please tell me so that I may learn.
Jacob said the most middle manager ass looking guy. What did you call him, Mike?
I can't remember what I called him. But
that was Daryl the elf.
Daryl, it's Daryl.
Daryl the High Elf.
The High King
Daryl. Because that's the High King Gilgalad, but he just looks like the most normal ass looking dude you've ever seen.
Did you see the side-by-side of Gilgalad in the Lord of the Rings trilogy?
No.
Oh, he's so really.
He
so
looks
some of these people
similar.
go.
Oh, really?
Really?
That's funny.
Yeah, it's like he's still a middle manager in the other movies too.
Huh.
Well, so here's the thing. I'm excited for this show that when it ends to read a BuzzFeed article that's like, here's the 10 things you didn't realize of this character's this and this. And I'll go flip that and be like, oh, interesting.
Yeah. There's thing is, there's a lot of spoilers because of that appendix, you can run into it. Same thing with Hot D. So be careful when you look at those lists. They might just straight up tell you like shit that's going to happen. But that just comes
also,
with the
don't look at the episode names for Hot D. I made that mistake on Wikipedia, and some of them I'm like, oh, I know where this is going.
I'm glad I have not done that. I've now gotten past the point where I know I've gotten past the thing that was spoiled for me. So now I can invest again. Yeah.
Okay, I like to hear that. But we've been your hosts. This is Colin Burr, or whatever.
Colin Brimbor.
Colin Brimbor, the fucking blacksmith.
This show makes me mad now. So now I'm no longer Mike Ladriel. I'm Mike Goss. I'm evil.
Mike Aron.
This is Jacob Rendier. I'm an elf. Yeah, sure.
Sure, why not? Keep it secret, keep it safe, Normies. We'll catch you next time.
Ooh, bye.
Bye.
Bye, normies.